Hello everyone, welcome to the series summarizing the novel Lord of the Mysteries on the AniMonolith channel. In previous parts, Klein recounts the resolution of the Ray Bieber case and his confrontation with the jester from the Secret Order. The Nighthawks retrieve the Antigonus family journal and contains the sealed artifact 2-049. Klein cleverly handles questions about his actions during the encounter, concealing the fact that the artifact briefly controlled him. He explains how he feigned being influenced, lured the jester into the artifact's range, and executed a calculated plan to eliminate him. Klein also reveals that the jester, a former seer, offered him the Sequence 8 clown potion in exchange for retrieving the Antigonus journal. The jester believed he could manipulate Klein but failed to foresee Klein's cunning and the artifact's danger. Then Klein agrees to formally join the Nighthawks, aiming to further his occult knowledge, enhance his abilities, and ultimately uncover the truths tied to his powers. Upon Dunn's suspicion, Lorada disagreed and casually explained, "I recall that some pathways have potions where the sequences don't closely correlate between stages." However, as soon as Lorada finished speaking, Harson immediately disagreed, presenting a very convincing argument. Even with other sequences that may seem unrelated, we can usually find certain similarities within their differences. But Seer and Clown don't seem to have that, which makes it particularly confusing. Suddenly, Klein spoke up, saying that he had figured out the commonality between Seer and Clown. You can find both characters in a circus. Despite Klein's serious delivery, his statement was humorous, and all the Nighthawks members were taken by surprise. Several of them even complimented Klein on his cheerful spirit and vivid imagination. Facing the acknowledgement of his seemingly silly deduction, Klein smiled wryly and continued, "I just hope the next potions in this pathway won't have names like marionettist or magician, or else it really will turn into a circus." In the joyful atmosphere created by Klein's bizarre speculation, the carriage quickly made its way to Zutland Street. Since he wasn't injured, Klein headed into the Blackthorn Security Company first. When Klein entered in his tattered suit, Roseanne was utterly shocked. However, after learning that he wasn't seriously injured, she quickly felt relieved. She then proactively asked Klein, "Do you want us to go up to the third floor to avoid it? Is that sealed artifact really that dangerous?" Klein immediately confirmed the extreme danger of the sealed artifact, admitting that if not for the fortune-changing ritual with its mysterious power, he himself would have likely died due to 2-049. Roseanne wanted to ask more, but she remembered that Captain Dunn was waiting downstairs, so she quickly notified Mrs. Oriana and the others to move up to the third floor. Although the houses on both sides and the upper and lower floors of the Blackthorn Security Company weren't owned by the Church of the Evernight Goddess, most of the residents were devout clergy, so they had a basic understanding of the place. Once all the office staff had retreated, Klein didn't head to the recreation room to inform the other Nighthawks but instead returned to help Captain Dunn and the others carry sealed artifact 2-049, along with the creature left behind by Bieber and the Antigonus family journal, up to the second floor. As they passed through the partition wall, Dunn opened the door to the recreation room and ordered Royale and Fry, who were playing a game inside, "Both of you, head to the Tyrell warehouse at the dock to assist Leonard with the next stages." Upon hearing the instructions, Royale and Fry immediately agreed and quickly got up to leave. However, Royale seemed to be waiting for something, and Dunn, realizing what he'd forgotten, added that they needed to inform the police to block off the streets. He emphasized that no one should approach the area until the scene was handled and the body transported back to the company. Even after receiving these instructions, Royale and Fry lingered a bit before finally leaving, as they were used to Dunn Smith's well-known habit of quickly forgetting unimportant details. Then, Dunn, Klein, and the others went down to the underground location of the Cheney's Gate. Dunn asked Klein to summon Old Neil to perform a magical healing ritual for the injured members. Before Dunn could give further instructions, Klein quickly replied, "I'll take Neil's place watching over the armory, and I'll also request at least 20 demon-hunting bullets." While waiting for the cathedral's response, I'll try to suppress my curiosity about the Antigonus journal. Seeing how Klein had anticipated his unspoken intentions, Dunn no longer needed to persuade him or give additional tasks. Klein then headed to the armory, briefly recounting the events to Old Neil. Naturally, Neil was shocked and couldn't believe the strange occurrences Klein described, such as killing a clown of a higher sequence or Ray Bieber transforming into a monster. Not only did Old Neil have many unanswered questions, but Klein himself was also deeply curious. He wondered why the Church of the Evernight Goddess didn't have medicine to treat injured Beyonders from battles and instead relied on magical healing rituals. Old Neil patiently explained Klein's question, "Normal ingredients used in medicine won't yield effective healing results. That's why rituals are necessary to make their effects long-lasting. As for using extraordinary materials, they're quite rare and mostly unsuitable for this purpose. You know about the goddess gaze, right? When the medicine is created and empowered through a ritual, it becomes a true healing potion, but its effects start to diminish by the minute, eventually leaving only a trace behind. After his explanation, old Neil went to the Chinese gate area, while Klein stayed behind to guard the armory. A while later, Klein heard the familiar footsteps of Neil returning. Upon seeing Klein, Neil immediately complained about how tired he was from the hard work and quickly sent Klein away so he could rest. Naturally, Klein didn't disturb old Neil and promptly left. As Klein walked down the empty hallway, he suddenly noticed a room he had never seen before. Realizing there was a hidden door in the place, Klein paused near a corner, looking at the secret room from a distance. He noticed that corpse collector Fry had returned and was inside, carefully inspecting a naked body. With vague thoughts in his mind, Klein gathered the courage to approach the room and lightly knocked on the open door 3 times. Fry immediately stopped what he was doing, and Klein quickly asked if the corpse Fry was examining belonged to the clown from the secret order. Fry confirmed Klein's guess and also responded to his curiosity about whether he had found any clues, stating that there was nothing unusual yet. Fry's brief and somewhat cold response left Klein feeling a bit awkward, but then Fry suddenly invited him to come in and observe the autopsy if he wished. Klein entered the room and looked at the body lying on the stark white table. The clown's red, yellow, and white makeup had been wiped away, revealing an ordinary face with black hair, a high-nose bridge, and an age of around 30. At this moment, Fry moved to a square table in the corner, picked up a pencil and a blank sheet of paper, and began drawing something with great focus. Out of curiosity, Klein glanced over and saw that Fry was sketching the head of the clown in the tailcoat. Before long, a lively portrait appeared on the white paper. Unlike the somewhat damaged body, the portrait didn't have the horrific wound on the forehead, instead showing a pair of blue eyes on the face. Impressed by Fry's exceptional drawing skills, Klein didn't hesitate to praise him. Fry calmly responded that his dream had once been to become an artist. Intrigued by Fry's openness, Klein asked why he hadn't pursued that dream. Fry explained that he had wanted to become a priest, a highly respected profession, and that his father, who was a priest of the goddess, had hoped Fry would follow in his footsteps. Learning that Fry had once been a priest surprised Klein, but Fry spoke of his past with an air of indifference. I was a priest, then I experienced some things and went through some events, and now I'm a nighthawk. Klein didn't want to pry further into Fry's personal matters, so he shifted the topic, asking, since you were once a priest of the goddess, why didn't you choose the sleepless path, which the Church of the Evernight Goddess holds the complete sequence for? Fry replied that he had chosen to become a corpse collector for personal reasons, mentioning that Daly had been a good role model for him. Just as Klein was about to change the subject, Fry suddenly suggested, you should keep an eye on this place. I need to take this portrait to the captain because closing that hidden door is quite troublesome. After Fry left, the room became eerily quiet. The tailcoat clown lay there motionless, with pale skin and tightly closed eyes, no longer breathing. When Klein saw the jester's wrist, he noticed a strange mark. Summoning all his courage, he reached out to examine it more closely. Suddenly, a cold sensation, as icy as frost, shot up from Klein's fingertips to his brain. The jester's pale, lifeless hand abruptly shot up, grabbing Klein's wrist. Startled and gripped by fear, Klein instinctively tried to pull away, retreating as far as he could. As he struggled, the corpse was pulled off the table and fell to the stone floor, but its icy white hand still held Klein's wrist tightly. This chilling grip overwhelmed Klein, leaving him unable to think clearly. His only thought was to draw his gun to handle the situation. But his dominant hand, the one gripping the weapon, was trapped. Despite repeated efforts, Klein couldn't free his revolver from the holster beneath his arm. At that moment, the jester's corpse opened its eyes, revealing unfocused blue irises. Its mouth moved, uttering a whisper-like moan, Hornacis. 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 After these 3 words, Klein, who had been fumbling in a panic, suddenly felt the cold fingers around his wrist begin to loosen, then drop entirely. The jester closed its eyes again, as if the entire incident had never happened. If not for the body still lying on the stone floor, Klein might have thought he'd hallucinated the whole event. Slowly recovering his composure, he cautiously examined the corpse, confirming it no longer moved. Only then did he notice the deep red marks on his wrist, 5 distinct finger-shaped bruises. Reflecting on the incident, Klein couldn't fully understand why the jester's corpse had suddenly come to life. However, he did recognize a key detail: the jester had repeatedly whispered the word Hornacis. He began to formulate a theory. The Antigonus family journal mentions the nation of the Evernight located in the Hornacis mountain range. I recall hearing something about Hornacis during that strange spiritual vision. Now, this corpse has used eerie means to stress the same word to me. Maybe the answer to many questions lies in the Hornacis range. Perhaps there's a great danger hidden there, like a sealed evil god trying to escape through whispers like these. After these thoughts, Klein carefully returned to the room. He realized he couldn't let the corpse collector Fry see the mess he'd made, so despite his lingering fear, he dragged the corpse back onto the table, positioning it as it had been before. Only then did he remember why he had approached the body in the first place, to inspect the strange mark on its wrist. However, when he looked again, the mark had somehow detached itself, transforming into a small, blood-red orb mixed with a faint blue hue. This orb, the size of a thumb, floated silently in the air, defying all physical laws. Klein had no desire to keep this strange blood orb for himself. First, he had no idea whether it was dangerous or not. Second, he believed Fry had likely already noticed the mark on the wrist and might even know what it was. Even if Fry didn't know, it would be better to submit it to Captain Dunn and let the Nighthawks investigate it thoroughly rather than experimenting on his own. A few tense minutes later, Fry returned and was immediately drawn to the blood orb. He asked the same question Klein had been pondering: "What is this?" Though Klein wasn't sure either, he calmly recounted everything that had happened, leaving nothing out. After listening, Fry concluded, the bodies of Beyonders often change in bizarre ways. He then asked Klein to go fetch Captain Dunn to examine the corpse. Fry also advised Klein to take a break since the events ahead would likely be even more horrifying. Klein, not eager to witness anything gruesome, quickly left for the Chinese Gate area. Upon meeting Dunn, Klein recounted everything in detail. Dunn listened quietly and nodded, saying, "I'll report this to the church. They may send someone to investigate the highest peak of the Hornacis range." After discussing the conditions of Borja, Harson, and Lorata, with the reassurance that they were all in good health, though Lorata, who had been the most injured, was already out drinking coffee in town, Klein felt much more at ease. He bid farewell to Dunn, who was heading to the lab, but a few seconds later, Dunn turned back, reminding Klein that he was relieved from duty for the rest of the day since he'd been through so much. He also mentioned that he would submit the paperwork to promote Klein to an official Nighthawk the following day. Dunn encouraged Klein to take note of any damages so that the church could compensate him accordingly. As Dunn was about to leave, he added, "Don't dwell too much on killing a Beyonder. You saved many more people from danger by doing so." After confirming that Klein understood, Dunn lightly tapped his forehead, as if remembering something else, and said, "Oh, one more thing. I've given the portrait of the Beyonder to Leonard, and he'll work with the police to continue the investigation. I suspect that Beyonder had used carriages, eaten food, and stayed in a fixed location in Tingen City. Because everything that happens leaves traces, as Emperor Roselle once remarked." After saying goodbye to Captain Dunn and walking down the stairs to the reception hall, Klein headed home, but a serious issue suddenly occurred to him. The tailcoat-wearing jester had mentioned that the secret order held the sequence pathway corresponding to Seer. This meant that although they might not have the means to prepare high sequences, they surely had access to the lower ones. This implied that the secret order would have no shortage of seers, and it was possible that they could divine that Klein had killed the jester, leading to a covert retaliation. Klein seriously considered this issue, but soon realized he was worrying too much. First, the secret order has no idea who the members of the Nighthawks are. Second, even if they knew one or two members, it's unlikely that they'd know about someone in an administrative role, like my current position. Third, unless they have a prophet, there's no way they can divine who the real culprit is. Klein quickly left the company and took a public carriage back to Narcissus Street. Despite the exhausting day filled with difficult battles, Klein had no appetite. Instead, he decided to sleep, hoping to shake off the discomfort and revulsion growing inside him. After managing to overcome that psychological burden, Klein went downstairs to gather ingredients for dinner. Then, suddenly, he heard the door open. Naturally, Klein could easily guess that it was Melissa because, ever since she started using the public carriage, she always came home on time without staying late anymore. When the door opened, Melissa walked in with her bag of books. She looked toward the kitchen where Klein was standing and said, "Brother, you have a letter from your teacher." Hearing this, Klein immediately remembered that he had once written to his teacher, asking for historical documents related to the highest peak of the Hornacis mountain range.